Never take advice from a dead man, a dead man. Created, unable to understand, understand. It's the blind leading the blind, if you take him by the hand, a dead man.
We have another Ken Wilson citation. Woohoo! Again, use of sources. Ken Wilson likewise was critical of Augustine's construal of the human will. Oh, you want to put that up too, huh? Augustine remained too committed to his systematic theology, demanding a damnably corrupted evil willer to entertain any notion of a neutral will in humans. So let me just stop right there. Neutral will in humans? Where on earth can you get that from the Bible?
Moreover, your little ones, who you said would become plunder, and your sons, who this day have no knowledge of good and evil, shall enter there, and I will give it to them, and they shall take possession of it. Deuteronomy 1:39.
Where on earth can you get that from the Bible?
He will eat curds and honey at the time. He knows enough to refuse evil and choose good. For before the boy knows enough to refuse evil and choose good, the land whose two kings you dread will be abandoned. Isaiah 7:15-16.
Where on earth can you get that from the Bible?
Should I not also have compassion on Nineveh, the great city in which there are more than 120,000 people who do not know the difference between their right hand and their left? Jonah 4:11.
Where on earth can you get that from the Bible?
Behold, I have found only this, that God made people upright, but they have sought out many schemes. Ecclesiastes 7:29.
Where on earth can you get that from the Bible?
Unless you turn and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Matthew 18:2-3.
Where on earth can you get that from the Bible? I mean, have you read Jeremiah recently? We don't even have to go to the New Testament. Read Jeremiah recently?
They have filled this place with the blood of the innocent, and have built the high places of Baal to burn their sons in the fire, as burnt offerings to Baal, which I did not command or decree, nor did it come into my mind. Jeremiah 19:4-5.
Something about the leopard spots and the Ethiopian and his skin. And
he did not mean that it was impossible for them to practice virtue, but that they did not wish to do so. John Chrysostom, Homilies on the Gospel of John 68.
Maybe Proverbs.
It is by his deeds that a boy distinguishes himself, if his conduct is pure and right. Proverbs 20:11.
Maybe Proverbs.
Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. Proverbs 22:6.
How about Nebuchadnezzar?
Nebuchadnezzar was not created spiritually dead, guilty, sinful, and unable to rightly understand spiritual things, though he certainly did fall by way of his pride and arrogance as an adult, failing to thank the Lord or honor him.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much in the Old Testament. And then it's just so explicitly said that man is dead in sin.
And you were dead in your offenses and sins, in which you previously walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, of the spirit that is now working in the sons of disobedience. Note how Ephesians 2:1-2 state you were dead in the sins and offenses you committed, not an innate sinful and guilty state you inherited from Adam when you were conceived.
And that does not, and it's not that means there's no response. No, the response is always negative. The response is rebellion.
This is simply a false claim, and demonstrably so. In Genesis 6:9, we're told Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. And in verse 22, Noah did everything that God had commanded him. In 1 Samuel 3:10, Samuel as a boy, he responded, "Speak, Lord, for your servant hears." Later, he faithfully obeyed God as prophet, even when it meant rebuking kings. In Genesis 12 and 22, Abraham left his homeland when God called him and obeyed God's command to offer Isaac, trusting God even when it seemed impossible. In Acts 9:17, when confronted by Christ, Paul asked, "Lord, what do you want me to do?" He obeyed the heavenly vision.
Inability to do what is good in God's sight. This is the plain, direct, indisputable teaching of the text.
Remember, never accept instruction on spiritual matters like interpreting Scripture from a man claiming God created him unable to rightly understand spiritual things, like the Scriptures. To do so would be beyond foolish.
Precisely because this evil willer could only choose evil without God, no neutrality. That's right. God must infuse salvific initial faith as a gift. How about God must raise by grace the recipient of his grace to spiritual life?
Rewording the objection into terms you find more suitable does nothing to either make the concept espoused biblically sound, nor overcome the defeater in your claim that you were created unable to rightly understand anything of the subject which you're now seeking to teach others.
Following his current Stoic and prior Neoplatonic and Gnostic Manichaean views. It's just... wow. Balderdash. Okay? It's just... The level of absurdity is difficult to comprehend.
Does your inability to understand spiritual truths also include a total inability to accept basic historical facts? Augustine was a Gnostic Manichaean and only converted to Christianity after reading the Bible through a Neoplatonist filter.
The level of absurdity is difficult to comprehend.
In Augustine's Confessions, Book 7, Chapter 20, he wrote, "By having thus read the books of the Platonists, and having been taught by them to search for the incorporeal truth," and he goes on to note how he thought the scriptures were absurd until he read them through a Neoplatonist filter. And in City of God, Book 8, Chapter 5, he wrote that it is especially with the Platonists that we must carry on our disputations on matters of theology, their opinions being preferable to those of all other philosophers.
Wow. Balderdash.
In Confessions, Book 4, Chapter 1, Augustine wrote, "During this time of 9 years, I was a follower of the Manichaeans, seduced and seducing, deceived and deceiving."
So finally, here we get to Romans 8:28-30, election and predestination. Romans 8:28-30 serves as a foundational text for Reformed theologians who argue for the doctrines of predestination and unconditional election. John Piper, for example, referred to Romans 8:28-30 as the most important text of all in relation to the teaching of unconditional election. This passage is often described as the golden chain, outlining what is known as the Ordo Salutis, a logical and chronological sequence of events in salvation that underscores God's absolute sovereignty, leaving no room for human agency. Well, it contains, and I would say...
Remember, never accept instruction on spiritual matters like interpreting Scripture from a man claiming God created him unable to rightly understand spiritual things, like the Scriptures. To do so would be beyond foolish.
However, there is strong exegetical basis for challenging the Reformed reading of Romans 8:28-30. Well, let's see if we can see some exegesis.
Friends, if a man tells you God created him unable to rightly understand spiritual things, simply concede his inability to understand spiritual things and send him on his way. Never answer a fool according to his foolishness, or you will also be like him. Proverbs 26:4. If that foolish man tells you he has been regenerated, kindly point out that regeneration is itself a spiritual thing, which he has claimed he was created unable to rightly understand. If the foolish man seeks to debate the Scriptures with you, kindly remind him that he was created unable to rightly understand them, and you'd rather not waste either of your time. This is the undercutting defeater inherent in total depravity. By noting their foundational premise of an inability to rightly understand spiritual things, they deny themselves any justification for believing they presently understand such things, as all they can appeal to are the very things they claim to be created unable to understand.
The level of absurdity is difficult to comprehend.
putting on Christ is not one among many jobs a Christian has to do, and it is not a sort of special exercise for the top class. It is the whole of Christianity. Christianity offers nothing else at all. C.S. Lewis.